Sheila was a new employee at the company. She had joined only 2 weeks ago, and every morning she still felt nervous walking through the glass doors of the tall office building. Everything seemed so big, shiny, and serious. People in smart clothes walked fast, carrying files or talking on their phones. She often felt like a small fish in a giant pond. The person who scared her the most was her new boss, Mr. Raymond. He was the CEO, the man everyone respected and sometimes feared. He walked with a straight back, spoke with strong confidence, and never seemed to smile much. His expensive suits, his deep voice, and his sharp eyes made him look powerful. To Sheila, he seemed like the kind of man who lived in a different world, untouchable, unreachable. But at the same time, Sheila couldn't deny that he was very handsome. His strong jaw, neat hair, and the way he carried himself made him stand out in every room. She would never admit it aloud, but sometimes she caught herself staring at him during meetings, and yet his serious face made her think he was also arrogant, like someone who didn't care much about ordinary people. One morning, Sheila was in the break room with her friend and colleague, Mia. They were making coffee before starting work. Mia leaned close and whispered, "Our boss looks so serious again today. I wonder if he ever laughs." Sheila, still half asleep and not careful with her words, whispered back, "He is hot but also so arrogant." She thought only Mia heard her. But the room went silent. Sheila noticed that a few other colleagues had stopped moving. Slowly, she turned her head and her heart almost stopped. Right behind her, just a few steps away, stood Mr. Raymond himself. He was holding a cup, clearly waiting to pour himself some coffee. His sharp eyes were on her, and there was no doubt he had heard everything. Sheila froze. Her face turned red like fire. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Mia looked shocked too, covering her mouth with her hand. The silence felt heavier and heavier, like the whole world had stopped. In her head, Sheila screamed at herself. "Why did I say that? Why here? Why now? I'm finished. He will fire me. Everyone will think I'm stupid." She wanted to run out of the room, but her legs felt like stone. All her colleagues were staring, waiting for Mr. Raymond to react. Finally, he placed his cup down slowly. His eyes were still on her. Sheila thought he would shout or give her a cold lecture, but instead, something unexpected happened. The corner of his lips curved into a half smile. His voice was calm but strong as he said, "Hot and arrogant? That's an interesting description." The whole room gasped, then gave a nervous laugh. Mia let out a small giggle, trying to break the tension, but Sheila's heart was still pounding fast, her hands shaking. She tried to speak, to explain herself, but nothing came out. She wanted to say it was a joke or that she didn't mean it, but the words got stuck in her throat. Mr. Raymond, still smiling faintly, picked up his coffee and walked out of the break room without another word. The silence he left behind was almost louder than his presence. People turned back to their cups and spoons, but Sheila knew they were all secretly grinning. In less than 5 minutes, her embarrassing slip would become the office's hottest gossip. Sheila covered her face with her hands, wishing the ground would open up and swallow her whole. She whispered to Mia, "I'm dead. I'll lose my job for sure." But deep inside, she couldn't stop replaying that small smile on her boss's face. It wasn't angry, it wasn't cruel, it was amused. And that made her even more confused. After that morning in the break room, Sheila's life inside the office completely changed. She couldn't escape the whispers. Everywhere she went, she noticed people glancing at her and hiding small smiles. Some colleagues teased her gently, "Careful, Sheila. The boss might be too hot to handle." Others warned her in serious tones, "You should be more careful. Mr. Raymond doesn't like jokes." Sheila's stomach was in knots the whole day. Every time she passed her boss's office door, she felt her knees weaken. She expected him to call her in and fire her on the spot. Her mind played scenes where he would glare at her, slam his desk, and tell her she had no future in the company. But strangely, nothing happened. Hours passed, meetings came and went, and Mr. Raymond acted completely normal. He didn't shout at her, didn't scold her, didn't even give her the cold treatment. He simply worked as usual, with his serious face and calm tone. For Sheila, that was worse than punishment. The silence drove her crazy. She wanted him to just say something, anything, so she could know what he was thinking. Was he planning to fire her later? Was he laughing behind her back? Or did he actually enjoy the comment? During the afternoon meeting, Sheila tried to focus on the presentation, but she felt his eyes on her once or twice. Maybe she imagined it, but every time she looked up, she saw that faint curve of a smile on his lips. It wasn't cold, it was almost playful. That made her cheeks heat up again. By lunch, she sat in the cafeteria with Mia, her friend. "Why isn't he saying anything?" she whispered nervously. Mia giggled. "Honestly, I think he liked it." "Did you see his face?" "He wasn't angry. He was amused. You might have done something no one else dared to do." Sheila groaned, putting her face into her hands. "I don't want to be noticed like that. This is embarrassing. I just want to do my job quietly." But fate had different plans. Around 3 in the afternoon, her phone rang. She looked at the caller ID. It was the secretary from the CEO's office. Her heart dropped into her stomach. "Mr. Raymond would like to see you in his office," the voice said politely. Sheila's hands turned cold. Her pen slipped from her fingers. Mia gave her a worried look. "Don't panic, just go. Maybe it's not about that morning." But Sheila knew. It was definitely about that morning. She walked slowly through the long corridor, every step heavy like walking toward her own trial. People glanced at her, some curious, some pitying. She knocked on the large wooden door and a deep voice said, "Come in." Inside, Mr. Raymond sat at his desk, surrounded by neat files and his laptop. The tall windows behind him let sunlight pour into the room, making him look even more powerful. Sheila swallowed hard. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Her voice shook slightly. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "Sit down, Miss Sheila." She obeyed, her heart racing so fast it almost hurt. She expected anger, but his face was calm, almost unreadable. "I heard something interesting this morning," he began. His eyes held hers firmly. "You called me hot and arrogant." Sheila wished she could disappear. She lowered her head, mumbling, I didn't mean it, sir. It just slipped out. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I promise it won't happen again." To her surprise, he leaned back in his chair, resting one hand on his chin. Instead of shouting, he asked, "Why arrogant?" Sheila blinked, confused. "Sir? You said hot and arrogant," he repeated calmly. "The first part, I'll let slide. But why arrogant?" Sheila was shocked. She hadn't expected such a question. Gathering her courage, she whispered, "Because you always look serious. You don't smile much. You seem like you don't care about ordinary people like me. That's why I said it." "I'm sorry, sir." For a moment, the office was silent. She feared she had insulted him again. But then something unbelievable happened. Mr. Raymond laughed. Not a small chuckle, but a real laugh. It echoed through the office, rich and warm. Sheila froze, staring at him. She had never seen him laugh before. He shook his head, still smiling. "So that's how people see me? Cold and arrogant? Interesting." Sheila didn't know what to say. She just sat there, wide-eyed, while her powerful boss looked more human than ever before. When he calmed down, he leaned forward slightly and said, "Miss Sheila, you've given me something to think about. Maybe I do come across as arrogant. Maybe I need to change that." His tone was soft, almost thoughtful. Sheila nodded nervously. "I didn't mean to offend you, sir." "You didn't," he replied with a small smile. "In fact, it's refreshing to hear the truth." Her jaw almost dropped. Was he thanking her? Then he added, "You can go back to work now. And don't worry, I'm not firing you." Sheila almost gasped in relief. She stood up quickly, thanked him, and walked out, her legs shaking. As she closed the door behind her, she leaned against the wall, breathing fast. What just happened? The boss had laughed at her insult. He had even admitted she might be right. For the first time since joining the company, Sheila saw him not as a scary CEO, but as a man, someone who could smile, someone who could laugh, someone who could surprise her. After her meeting with Mr. Raymond, Sheila thought she could finally breathe again. She was safe, at least for now. He hadn't fired her, he hadn't scolded her, and most shocking of all, he had laughed. That moment kept replaying in her mind, making her wonder if she had imagined it. Could the serious CEO, known for his strictness, really have found her comment amusing? But even as she tried to calm down, the office wasn't ready to let the matter rest. By the next morning, the story of what happened in the break room had spread like wildfire. It seemed that every corner of the building whispered about the new girl who called the boss hot and arrogant. When Sheila walked in, she immediately felt the stares. Some coworkers gave her teasing smiles. Others shook their heads in disbelief. As she sat at her desk, one of her colleagues, James, leaned over and whispered, "You're braver than all of us combined." No one has ever dared to call him arrogant to his face. Sheila sighed, whispering back, "It wasn't bravery. It was a stupid mistake." "It wasn't bravery. It was a stupid mistake," James chuckled. "Well, mistake or not, you've made history." Her friend Mia tried to comfort her. "Don't worry, Sheila. Everyone's talking about it now, but soon it'll pass. And honestly, people seem happy. You showed them he's human too." But Sheila wasn't convinced. For her, every chuckle and every glance felt like a reminder of her embarrassment. She wanted to disappear, to melt into her chair, to become invisible until people forgot. The worst part was the constant uncertainty about Mr. Raymond. During the morning meeting, she noticed him glancing at her once or twice. Was it her imagination? Or did his eyes linger on her just a moment longer than normal? And every time she caught him, that faint smile tugged at his lips again. Sheila's heart would race. She didn't know if she was in trouble or if she had somehow impressed him. Neither option felt safe. By lunchtime, things got even worse. She was walking through the cafeteria with her tray when two women from the accounting department giggled loudly. "There goes the boss's favorite," one said, not even trying to lower her voice. "Hot and arrogant, huh? Maybe she knows something we don't." Sheila's cheeks burned as people around laughed softly. She hurried to her seat, but she could still hear the whispers behind her. "Do you think he'll fire her?" "No, did you see his face?" He looked amused. "Maybe he likes her. That would explain a lot." Sheila pushed her food around her plate, unable to eat. "This is a nightmare," she muttered to Mia. Mia rolled her eyes. "Ignore them. People love gossip. They're just jealous that the boss even noticed you." "But I don't want him to notice me," Sheila whispered back. "I just want to do my work quietly." Her wish, however, was impossible. The gossip had created a strange shift in the office. Suddenly, people treated her differently. Some looked at her with admiration, as if she was a hero who had said what they all thought but never dared to speak. Others treated her with suspicion, whispering that she might be too close to the boss now. Sheila hated the attention. She wished things could go back to normal, but deep inside she couldn't forget the way Mr. Raymond had laughed in his office. That sound was stuck in her memory like music she couldn't turn off. Later that day, something unusual happened. During a team meeting, Mr. Raymond actually cracked a small joke. It wasn't anything big, just a comment about the printer being faster than some of the staff, but the entire room was shocked. People laughed, and for the first time, the heavy, serious air in the office felt lighter. Sheila noticed the way everyone's faces brightened. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be that her embarrassing comment had somehow influenced this change? As the meeting ended, one of her colleagues whispered, "What did you do to him?" "He's acting different." Sheila shook her head quickly. "Nothing. I didn't do anything." But she wasn't sure she believed it herself. That evening, when she was packing up her things, she overheard two senior managers talking near the elevator. "Raymond's been different these past 2 days." "Yes, more relaxed. Almost approachable." "I wonder what happened." Sheila bit her lip. She knew exactly what had happened, though she would never admit it aloud. Her one slip of the tongue had cracked the boss's cold shell. But as she left the building, a new worry entered her mind. If she had changed him even a little, what did that mean for her? Would people think she had some special influence over him? Would they grow jealous? And most importantly, what did he really think of her now? As she walked home under the evening sky, her thoughts kept circling around that last question. His reaction hadn't been anger, it had been curiosity, and that, more than anything, made her nervous. The next morning, Sheila walked into the office hoping that the gossip from yesterday would finally cool down. But she was wrong. The whispers hadn't stopped. They had grown louder. People looked at her differently now. Some smiled with admiration, others with jealousy, but no one ignored her anymore. Sheila hated it. She wasn't looking for attention. She just wanted to do her work quietly and stay invisible. But ever since she called her boss hot and arrogant, her world had changed. The real shock came around noon. The secretary from the CEO's office appeared at her desk once again. "Mr. Raymond would like to see you in his office," she said politely. Sheila's stomach twisted. Her fingers froze on her keyboard. Again, she thought. One meeting was enough. Why would he want to see her twice in 2 days? Had she done something wrong now? Mia leaned over and whispered, "Relax. Maybe it's about work this time." But Sheila wasn't convinced. She stood up slowly, her legs heavy like stone. As she walked through the long hallway, The eyes of her colleagues followed her. They were waiting for drama. When she knocked on the door, his deep voice called, "Come in." Sheila pushed the door open, her palms sweaty. Mr. Raymond sat at his large desk, looking calm and serious. Sunlight streamed in through the tall windows, casting shadows across the polished floor. He gestured toward the chair in front of him. "Sit down, Miss Sheila," he said firmly. She lowered herself into the chair, trying not to tremble. Her heart thudded in her chest. For a moment, he said nothing, just studied her with those sharp eyes. The silence made her even more nervous. Finally, he spoke. "I've been thinking about what you said." Sheila blinked. "About what I said, sir?" "Yes," he replied. Hot and arrogant. Her face turned red instantly. "Sir, I already apologized." He raised his hand, stopping her. "No need to repeat the apology." "I'm not here to punish you." She froze, confused. Then he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Tell me honestly, Miss Sheila, do I really come across as arrogant to my staff?" Sheila hesitated. She couldn't believe this conversation was real. Her boss, the CEO, was asking her for advice about his personality. She swallowed, her voice trembling. I think sometimes you seem distant, sir. You don't smile much and you look like you're always judging people. That makes others feel scared." Mr. Raymond tilted his head, listening carefully. His lips curved into a thoughtful smile. "Interesting. No one has ever told me that directly before." Sheila's eyes widened. "Really? No one?" He shook his head. "Most employees are too careful with their words. They say what I want to hear. But you gave me the truth, even if it was unplanned." Her cheeks burned again. She wanted to disappear, but she also felt strangely proud. Mr. Raymond leaned forward now, resting his elbows on the desk. His tone softened. "Do you know why I asked you here?" Sheila shook her head. "Because honesty is rare. I value it, and I want you to feel free to speak the truth when necessary, even if it makes me uncomfortable." Sheila stared at him, shocked. Was he trusting her? Out of everyone in the company, why her? Before she could reply, he added, "But there's another thing. You called me hot." Her breath caught in her throat. I didn't mean—" This time his smile widened slightly. "Don't worry. I'm not offended. In fact, it's amusing." His voice was calm, but his eyes sparkled with something she couldn't understand. Sheila sat frozen, unsure whether to laugh or cry. She had never been so embarrassed in her entire life. But she noticed one thing clearly: he wasn't angry. If anything, he seemed intrigued. The silence stretched between them for a moment, heavy but not hostile. Then Mr. Raymond spoke again. "You may go now. But remember what I said. Honesty is not a weakness, it's a strength. Don't be afraid to use it." Sheila nodded quickly and stood up, her legs shaky. She thanked him softly and left the office, her mind spinning. When she returned to her desk, Mia rushed to her side. "Well, what happened?" "Did he fire you?" Sheila shook her head slowly. "No, he asked me to be honest with him." "He actually listened." Mia's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean he wants your opinion?" Sheila nodded, still dazed. "I don't understand it either." Word of her second meeting with the boss spread quickly. The whispers grew louder, and some colleagues looked at her with open curiosity. She must have some special connection. Why would the boss call her twice? Maybe he actually likes her. Sheila ignored the gossip, but inside she couldn't stop thinking about his words. Honesty is not a weakness, it's a strength. Why would someone as powerful as Mr. Raymond need her honesty? And why did he look at her like that? Calm, serious, but with a spark in his eyes. For the first time, Sheila wondered if her slip of the tongue had started something bigger than just gossip. Something she wasn't ready for. Sheila thought her life at the company would calm down after the second meeting with Mr. Raymond. But instead, things became even more complicated. The whispers in the office didn't stop. In fact, they grew louder. People noticed how often the boss's eyes seemed to rest on her during meetings, how his tone softened slightly when addressing her. It was small, subtle, but enough for everyone to see and enough to feed the gossip mill. Sheila hated the attention. Every time she walked into the break room, she could feel people staring. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept replaying her conversations with Mr. Raymond. His words, "Honesty is not a weakness," echoed in her head. What did he mean? Why did he trust her opinion so much? She was just a new employee. One Thursday afternoon, everything came to a boiling point. The office was buzzing with activity because a major client presentation was coming up. Everyone was tense. Mr. Raymond walked into the conference room, tall and confident as always, but the atmosphere was unusually heavy. The team presented their ideas one by one. Some suggestions were strong, others weak, but no one dared to disagree with the boss's opinion. Everyone nodded quickly whenever he spoke, even if they had doubts. Sheila sat quietly, clutching her notebook. Her heart pounded. She remembered his words from their last meeting. Don't be afraid to use honesty. Finally, it was her turn. She stood, nervous but determined. She presented her slides, explaining her ideas clearly. At first, Mr. Raymond listened with his usual serious face, but then she did something no one expected. Sir, she said softly, I think the current strategy might look impressive, but it doesn't really focus on what the client wants. It feels more like we're showing off rather than solving their problems. The room went dead silent. Colleagues stared at her like she had lost her mind. Who would dare to tell the CEO that the entire strategy was wrong? Sheila's heart raced, but she pushed forward. If we want to win this client, we need to make them feel understood. We need to show them solutions that match their pain points, not just big numbers. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the explosion. Surely the boss would be furious. But instead, Mr. Raymond leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her. Then slowly he smiled. Finally, someone says it, gasps filled the room. Sheila blinked in shock. He wasn't angry. He agreed with her. He turned to the rest of the team. She's right. We've been too focused on impressing instead of connecting. Let's rework the plan. The meeting continued, but the energy had shifted. For the first time, people saw that the boss valued Sheila's words. They saw that he listened to her in a way he didn't listen to anyone else. When the meeting ended, people rushed out, whispering furiously. Mia caught Sheila's arm. Do you realize what you just did? You challenged him in front of everyone, and he agreed with you. Sheila shook her head, still stunned. I didn't plan it, I just told the truth, Mia grinned. That's exactly why he listens to you. No one else dares to speak up, but not everyone was happy. A few co-workers gave her cold looks. To them, Sheila was no longer just a clumsy newcomer. She was becoming someone with influence, someone the boss respected, and that made them uneasy. Later that evening, as the office emptied, Sheila stayed behind to finish some work. She was lost in thought when she heard footsteps. She looked up and saw Mr. Raymond standing by her desk. You did well today, he said, his voice calm but warm. Sheila swallowed. I just said what I felt, sir. That's exactly why it mattered, he replied. You weren't trying to impress me. You were being honest, and that's rare. She bit her lip, unsure what to say. Then before she could stop herself, the words slipped out. I wasn't trying to insult you that day in the break room, sir. I really thought you were arrogant. But now I see that maybe you just carried too much weight on your shoulders. The room fell silent. Sheila's heart pounded. Had she gone too far again? But instead of frowning, Mr. Raymond's face softened. For a moment, he looked less like a powerful CEO, and more like a tired man carrying invisible burdens. He gave a small nod. You're not wrong. Sometimes the pressure makes me forget how I appear to others. Perhaps I needed someone to remind me. Sheila's breath caught. He was admitting it openly. Thank you, Miss Sheila, he added quietly, for being brave enough to say what others wouldn't. As he turned to leave, Sheila sat frozen at her desk, her thoughts swirling. She realized that her honesty had done more than just embarrass her. It had touched something deep inside him. And while the rest of the office whispered about rumors, Sheila understood one thing clearly. She had seen a side of Mr. Raymond that no one else had seen. After the bold presentation, the atmosphere in the office changed, but not in the way Sheila expected. On one side, some co-workers began to respect her more. They whispered, she has courage, and the boss actually listens to her. On the other side, jealousy spread. A few people rolled their eyes when she spoke as if she was showing off. Sheila didn't want any of this. She had only spoken the truth, but it had turned her into the center of attention. Mr. Raymond, however, seemed different. The once distant, untouchable boss now carried himself with a lighter air. At meetings, he asked more questions. He smiled more often, even cracked small jokes that left people surprised. It was as if a wall had been broken inside him, and Sheila's words had played a part in it. But not everyone was happy about the new connection. One morning, as Sheila walked into the office kitchen to grab coffee, she overheard two colleagues whispering, "She's just a newcomer. Why does he listen to her? Maybe she's trying to charm him. You know how it works. Sheila froze, her stomach tightening. She walked away quickly, pretending not to hear, but the words cut deep. She wasn't trying to charm anyone. She was just being herself. Later that day during lunch, Mia tried to cheer her up. "Don't let them get to you," Mia said. "They're just jealous." For years, no one dared to speak openly in front of him. You did, and it changed everything. "Of course they'll be bitter," Sheila sighed. "But I didn't want to change anything. I just wanted to do my job quietly." Mia smiled knowingly. Sometimes fate chooses you even if you don't want it. That afternoon, Mr. Raymond called another team meeting. But this time things felt different. He was warmer, more approachable. When someone hesitated to share an idea, he encouraged them. When a mistake appeared in the data, instead of snapping, he calmly asked the team to fix it. The entire office noticed the shift. Sheila sat quietly watching him. Was this the same man who had once seemed so cold? She wondered if this side of him had always existed, hidden under layers of pressure and responsibility. At one point during the meeting, he glanced at her and said, "What do you think, Miss Sheila? You usually have an honest view." The room turned to look at her. Sheila's cheeks heated, but she gave her opinion clearly. He nodded, agreeing. The moment passed, but she could feel the stares of her colleagues burning holes into her back. After the meeting, one coworker muttered under his breath, "Teacher's pet." Another added, "Watch her get promoted in a month." Sheila clenched her fists under her desk. The whispers were becoming heavier to carry. That evening, when most of the office had left, Sheila stayed behind to finish her tasks. She was deep in thought when a voice startled her. "You've been quiet today," Mr. Raymond said, standing by her desk. She looked up quickly, her heart skipping. "I didn't want to take too much space, sir." He raised an eyebrow. "Too much space?" Sheila hesitated, then admitted softly, "Some people think I'm trying to get your attention. That I'm different now. It makes me uncomfortable." For a moment, silence filled the air. Then Mr. Raymond walked closer, his tone steady but firm. "Miss Sheila, let me make something clear. I listen to you because you speak the truth, not because of anything else. If people misunderstand, that is their problem, not yours." Sheila swallowed hard. His words were strong, but his eyes carried warmth. "Thank you, sir. I just don't want trouble." He gave a small smile. "You've done nothing wrong. Don't let jealousy silence your honesty." The sincerity in his voice struck her deeply. For the first time, she felt that he truly understood the burden she carried. As he turned to leave, he paused and added, "And for what it's worth, their jealousy only proves how much they notice you. Don't fear being noticed." Sheila sat frozen, watching him walk away. His words echoed in her chest. She didn't know what confused her more, the growing bond between them, or the way her heart fluttered every time he defended her. That night, as she walked home, she thought about how everything had changed so quickly. A single slip of the tongue had turned her from an invisible employee into the center of whispers, and somehow into someone her boss trusted. But with every step, one thought grew louder in her mind. What if this trust turns into something more? The more days passed, the more the office seemed to revolve around one thing: Sheila and the boss. It didn't matter what she did, people found a way to connect her name to Mr. Raymond. If he smiled once in a meeting, they said it was because of her. If he stayed calm during a mistake, they whispered it was her influence. Even if he just walked past her desk without saying a word, curious eyes followed every move. Sheila tried her best to ignore it, but the rumors grew like wildfire. One afternoon, while she was photocopying documents, two women from marketing stood nearby, speaking just loud enough for her to hear. "Did you see how he asked for her opinion again today?" One said. "Yes, it's obvious. She has his attention. Maybe more than attention." The other replied with a smirk. Sheila's hands trembled as she picked up the papers. She wanted to scream that nothing was happening, but she kept quiet. The whispers stung. She hadn't asked for this. She just wanted peace. Back at her desk, Mia leaned over. "Don't listen to them," she whispered. "They're jealous. Honestly, Sheila, the way he listens to you, it's something special." Sheila groaned softly. "That's the problem, Mia. I don't want something special. I want normal. I can't take all these stares and whispers anymore." But normal was no longer possible. That same week, during a company lunch, the situation became worse. The staff gathered in the cafeteria, chatting in groups. Mr. Raymond joined too, a rare occasion that shocked everyone. Normally, he ate in his office, away from the crowd. As he walked in, the room fell silent for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he sat at the same table, where Sheila and Mia were already sitting. Conversation stopped. Dozens of eyes turned to them. Sheila's face turned red instantly. She lowered her gaze, trying to look invisible. But Mr. Raymond sat calmly, greeting the group with a nod. "Don't stop talking on my account," he said smoothly. The lunch continued, but the atmosphere was tense. People whispered under their breath, stealing glances at Sheila. She barely touched her food. Her heart pounded the entire time. After lunch, when she returned to her desk, James, one of her co-workers, teased her. "So Sheila, when's the wedding? Since the boss clearly likes eating with you." Everyone nearby laughed. Sheila forced a smile, but inside she was burning with embarrassment. That evening she stayed late again, trying to finish her work and escape the gossip. The office was quiet, almost empty. She thought she was alone until a voice spoke behind her. "You didn't eat much today." She turned and saw Mr. Raymond standing there. Sheila looked down quickly. "I wasn't very hungry, sir." He studied her for a moment, then asked softly, "Is it because of the whispers?" Her eyes widened. "Did he know?" She nodded slightly. "People, they talk. They think things that aren't true. And I don't know how to stop it." For a moment, Mr. Raymond was silent. Then he walked closer, his expression serious but calm. "Sheila, people will always talk, especially when they see something they don't understand. You can't control their words. You can only control your truth." Sheila's throat tightened. "But what truth do they see? I don't want them to think I'm close to you in some way." His eyes softened. "And if you were?" She froze. The air between them grew heavy. His tone wasn't playful. It was serious, almost vulnerable. Sheila's heart raced. She didn't know what to say. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, she whispered, I don't know." He gave a small smile, but it wasn't mocking. It was gentle. "Don't worry. I'm not asking you for answers now. But remember, your honesty is what I value. Don't lose that, no matter what others say." With that, he turned and walked back toward his office, leaving Sheila standing by her desk, her mind spinning. She sat down slowly, clutching her chest. What did he mean by that? And if you were? The question replayed in her head over and over. That night, as she lay in bed, she couldn't sleep. His words, his look, his tone, they haunted her. She had never thought of him beyond being her boss. Yes, she had called him hot once, but it was just a slip. A silly comment. Yet now something deeper was stirring. Sheila closed her eyes, telling herself to stop thinking about it. But her heart refused to listen. The days that followed were heavier for Sheila. The gossip didn't fade, it grew stronger. Every little thing between her and Mr. Raymond was magnified and twisted into something else. If he asked her a question during a meeting, people whispered. If he passed by her desk and nodded, eyes followed with knowing smiles. Sheila felt trapped in a cage of rumors. She didn't want attention. She didn't want stares. But no matter how hard she tried to stay quiet, it only made the whispers louder. One Thursday evening, the office had almost emptied. Sheila stayed late, working quietly under the dim lights. She thought she was alone until she heard footsteps. Her heart skipped. She turned and saw him, Mr. Raymond, walking slowly toward her desk. "You're still here," he said, his voice calm but deep. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "I wanted to finish the report." He studied her for a moment. Then, with a hint of curiosity in his tone, he asked, "Do you still think I'm arrogant?" The question froze her. She stared at him, unsure how to respond. Sheila's cheeks heated. "Sir, I don't think so. At least not as much anymore." He raised an eyebrow. "Not as much?" Her lips curved into a nervous smile. "Well, you used to look very serious. Cold, even. But lately, you've been different." "Different how?" he asked, leaning slightly against her desk. She hesitated. Her voice came out low, almost a whisper. "You've been kinder. You smile more. You listen. It doesn't feel as scary anymore." A silence fell between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Mr. Raymond's gaze held hers, steady and unreadable. Then unexpectedly he asked, "And what about the first part?" Sheila blinked. "The first part?" "Yes," he said with a faint smile. "You called me hot." Her face burned instantly. "Sir, I didn't mean—" But before she could finish, he chuckled, a soft sound that eased the tension. "Relax, Sheila. I'm not offended. but I am curious. Do you still think that? Sheila's heart pounded. She didn't know how to answer. The truth was written all over her face, and she hated that he could see it. Gathering her courage, she whispered, "Yes, I still think that." For a moment, silence hung in the air again. Then his smile deepened, but it wasn't arrogant. It was warm, almost gentle. "Honest as always," he said softly. Sheila's chest tightened. His words felt different now, heavier with meaning. She tried to look away, but her eyes kept meeting his. Finally, she stood up, clutching her notebook. "I should finish the report, sir." He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "Of course. But Sheila, don't hide your honesty. That's what makes you unique." She swallowed hard, nodding before quickly sitting back down. He walked away, but his words stayed behind, echoing in her mind. That night, Sheila couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in her bed, thinking about the conversation. "Do you still think I'm hot?" The way he asked, the way his eyes lingered, it wasn't just teasing. There was something deeper, something unspoken. She hugged her pillow tightly. "Stop thinking about him," she whispered to herself. "He's your boss. That's all he is." But her heart didn't listen. The next day, the tension in the office grew heavier. A few colleagues had clearly noticed the growing closeness. When she entered the break room, conversation stopped abruptly. Some smiled knowingly, others gave her cold looks. James, always bold, walked past her desk and muttered, "Careful, Sheila. Playing with fire can burn." Sheila's stomach dropped. She hated how people twisted everything. But deep inside, she couldn't deny the spark that had started to grow between her and Mr. Raymond. That evening, once again, she found herself working late. And once again, the office grew quiet until only the two of them remained. This time, he didn't go to his office. He stopped by her desk again. "You work too hard," he said softly. She looked up, startled. I just don't like leaving things unfinished." He nodded, then asked, "Do you ever feel like you don't belong here?" The question surprised her. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Everyone here is so confident, so experienced." "I feel small." He studied her face. "You're not small, Sheila. You're braver than most people here. You've said things no one else dared to say." Her heart skipped. "That doesn't feel like bravery. It feels like mistakes." "Maybe mistakes are just another name for courage," he replied, his voice calm but steady. The words sank deep into her chest. She didn't know what to say. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, caught in a silence that spoke louder than words. When he finally walked away, Sheila sat frozen, her heart racing. She realized that whatever was happening between them was no longer just gossip. It was real, and it scared her more than anything else. The following week brought new challenges at the office. A big project deadline was approaching, and the pressure weighed heavily on everyone. Sheila worked late nights almost every day, her desk stacked with files and reports. Yet even in the chaos, she noticed something. Mr. Raymond was different. He wasn't just the serious, untouchable CEO anymore. He had started joining team discussions, asking for opinions, even sharing small jokes to ease the tension. But late one evening, when most employees had already gone home, Sheila stayed behind once more to complete her tasks. The office was quiet, the hum of the air conditioning filling the silence. She rubbed her tired eyes, sipping cold coffee, when she heard footsteps again. It was him. "Mr. Raymond." "You're here late again," he said, his voice calm but softer than usual. Sheila looked up quickly. "Yes, sir. I just want to finish these reports before tomorrow." He walked closer, his hands in his pockets. "You work harder than most people here." She gave a small smile. "I'm just trying to do my best." For a moment, he didn't reply. Then unexpectedly, he asked, "Do you know why people think I'm arrogant?" The question surprised her. She hesitated, then said carefully, "Because you don't show much emotion, sir. You look untouchable, like nothing affects you." He nodded slowly, pulling out the chair beside her and sitting down. "That's what I wanted people to think. That nothing can shake me." Sheila blinked. "Why?" He leaned back, his eyes distant as if remembering something painful. "Because when I was younger, I learned the hard way that showing weakness can destroy you. I built this company with my own hands. In the beginning, investors laughed at me. Competitors tried to crush me. Even people I trusted betrayed me. So I put up a wall strong, cold, unshakable. That wall became my armor. Sheila listened silently, her heart tightening. She had never imagined her boss, the powerful man everyone feared, carrying scars from the past. He continued, his tone low. But after years of hiding behind that wall, I realized it also kept people out. My employees feared me, but they never truly respected me. They saw a machine, not a man. Sheila's voice was soft. That sounds lonely. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes. Sadness. He looked at her and his voice dropped. It is. Success means nothing if you live inside a fortress all alone. Sheila's chest ached. She had never thought of him as lonely. She had thought of him as arrogant, powerful, untouchable. But now, seeing him open up, she realized he was human. He carried burdens and pain just like everyone else. She whispered, "Maybe you don't have to live behind that wall anymore. People respect honesty too. You've already changed, sir. Everyone notices." He studied her for a long moment. "And you're the reason for that change." Her heart skipped. "Me? Yes, you," he said firmly. "Your honesty forced me to look at myself differently. You saw me not as a boss, not as a powerful man, but as someone who could be arrogant. And instead of being angry, I realized you were right. You reminded me I'm human." Sheila's cheeks warmed. She lowered her gaze, unable to meet his eyes. "I didn't mean to change anything." "It was an accident." He chuckled softly. "Some accidents change everything." The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Sheila felt something stir inside her, a mix of admiration, respect, and something she didn't dare to name. Finally, she asked, "Do you regret it? Building that wall?" He paused, thinking. "Sometimes. It made me strong, but it also made me alone." His voice grew softer. Until now, her breath caught. The meaning in his words was clear, and it frightened her. She quickly stood, gathering her files. "I should finish this report, sir," she said quickly, her voice shaking slightly. He didn't stop her, but his eyes followed her every move. "Of course. But Sheila, remember this. Never hide who you are. Your honesty is rare. Don't let anyone silence it." She nodded, her heart racing, and returned to her desk. But as she sat down, her mind was spinning. She had just seen the human side of her boss, the pain, the loneliness, the man behind the armor. And for the first time, she realized she was drawn to him not just as a leader, but as a person. That night, as she walked home under the city lights, Sheila thought about everything he had said. She realized something terrifying. The more she saw his human side, the harder it was to keep her feelings under control. The next morning, Sheila walked into the office with a different feeling in her chest. Something had shifted after last night's conversation with Mr. Raymond. She no longer saw him as just a strict, cold CEO. She had seen his scars, his struggles, and his loneliness. Behind the expensive suits and serious expressions was a man who had fought battles she couldn't even imagine. Sheila sat at her desk, trying to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to his words. "Success means nothing if you live inside a fortress all alone." Those words carried weight, and she couldn't shake the sadness in his eyes when he said them. Throughout the day, she noticed his behavior more closely. He greeted employees with a nod, sometimes even with a smile. When someone made a mistake in a report, instead of snapping, he calmly asked them to correct it. The office atmosphere felt lighter, less tense. People whispered about the new boss, and though they didn't say it openly, many seemed relieved. But Sheila also noticed the other side, the envy. Some colleagues couldn't stand the way Mr. Raymond often looked at her during meetings, or how he asked for her opinion more than others. The whispers grew sharper. "She's turning into his favorite. Careful, or she'll be promoted just because he likes her. Maybe she's playing innocent, but she knows what she's doing." The words cut Sheila deeply. She didn't want favoritism. She didn't want special treatment. She wanted respect for her work, not rumors that stained her name. That afternoon, during another big team meeting, the tension grew. The group was discussing strategies for an upcoming partnership deal. Ideas flew across the room, but most people avoided disagreeing with the boss. Finally, Mr. Raymond turned to Sheila and asked, "What do you think, Miss Sheila?" Dozens of eyes landed on her. She froze for a moment. She could feel the envy burning in the room. If she spoke honestly again, people would say she was showing off. But if she stayed quiet, she'd betray the trust he had placed in her. She took a deep breath and spoke. I think the proposal looks strong, but it might not connect with the partner's actual needs. If we don't adjust, we risk losing them." The room went silent. Again, she had gone against the flow. But Mr. Raymond didn't look offended. He leaned back and nodded. "You're right. Let's rework the approach." A few employees frowned, clearly unhappy. But Sheila saw something else, admiration in his eyes. Not just for her honesty, but for her courage. After the meeting, as everyone left the room, Mia rushed to Sheila's side. "You did it again," she whispered. "You told the truth when no one else dared," Sheila sighed. "And now they'll hate me more for it." But Mia shook her head. "No, maybe they'll hate you, but he respects you. And respect from someone like him. That's powerful." Later that evening, Sheila stayed behind once more, finishing the final touches on the updated proposal. She didn't notice Mr. Raymond walking up until he spoke. "You've grown bolder," he said quietly. She looked up, startled. I just tried to be honest, sir." He studied her for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you know how rare that is? Most people say what they think I want to hear. But you," he paused, "you say what I need to hear." Sheila lowered her gaze, her cheeks warming. "I don't want people to think I'm trying to be special." His voice softened. "You are not trying. You already are." Her breath caught. The weight of those words sank deep into her chest. She didn't know how to respond. All she could do was look down at her notes, hoping he wouldn't see how fast her heart was racing. After a moment, he spoke again, his tone quieter, almost personal. "Do you know why I keep asking for your opinion?" She shook her head. "Because it reminds me that I don't have to carry everything alone. You see things differently. You remind me to stay human." Her throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she gave him a small, shaky smile. He returned the smile, gentle and genuine. Then, as if sensing her struggle, he stood and said, "Get some rest, Sheila. You've done enough for today." As he walked away, she sat frozen in her chair, her thoughts spinning. He had called her special. He had admitted that her presence reminded him of his humanity. For the first time, Sheila realized she wasn't just respecting him as her boss anymore. She admired him as a man who carried heavy burdens but still looked for light. And that admiration was slowly turning into something deeper, something dangerous. That night, as she lay in bed, she whispered to herself, "Don't fall, Sheila. He's your boss. Don't fall." But her heart knew the truth. It was already too late. The company's quarterly dinner was one of the biggest events of the year. Everyone dressed their best, hoping to impress clients, managers, and of course the CEO himself. Sheila had never attended such an event before. She stood nervously in front of the mirror that evening, adjusting her simple but elegant black dress. She wasn't trying to stand out. She only wanted to blend in. But as soon as she entered the grand hall filled with glittering chandeliers and the soft hum of music, all eyes seemed to turn toward her. Colleagues whispered as she walked in. She could feel the weight of their stares. Some smiled politely, others smirked with judgment, and then she saw him. Mr. Raymond stood near the stage, speaking with senior managers and clients. Dressed in a sharp dark suit, he looked powerful as always, but tonight, there was something different. His expression was lighter, and when his eyes found hers across the room, a small smile touched his lips. Her heart skipped. She quickly looked away, pretending to focus on finding her seat. The dinner began with speeches from department heads. People clapped, laughed, and raised their glasses at the right moments. But the atmosphere was stiff, as it always was when the CEO was in the room. No one dared to be too casual or too bold, until Sheila did something unexpected. When it was time for the toast, Mr. Raymond stood on stage and thanked everyone for their hard work. His words were formal, polite, and safe. The audience clapped politely. Then, to her own shock, Sheila felt her hand rise. "May I add something?" she asked, her voice steady though her heart raced. The room went silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Even Mr. Raymond raised an eyebrow in surprise. Sheila stood holding her glass. Her voice trembled at first, but then grew stronger. "When I first joined the company, I thought our boss was—" She paused, taking a breath. Hot and arrogant. Gasps filled the room. Some people nearly choked on their drinks. Mia covered her face with both hands. But Sheila pressed on, her eyes shining with courage. "But now," she continued, "I see a different man. A leader who listens, who respects honesty, and who has taught us that strength doesn't always mean silence." Tonight I want to raise my glass to the man who has shown us not only how to lead but also how to be human." The room froze. For a moment, no one dared to move. Then slowly applause erupted. People clapped, cheered, even laughed nervously. The tension broke like glass shattering. And Mr. Raymond? He didn't look angry. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked proud. His eyes locked on Sheila's and a rare, genuine smile spread across his face. He raised his glass in return. "To honesty," he said, "to honesty." The crowd echoed. The dinner carried on, but the mood was different now. People laughed more freely, conversations flowed, and the heavy air that usually surrounded the CEO seemed lighter. Sheila sat back down, her cheeks red but her heart soaring. After the speeches, music played and some employees moved to the dance floor. Sheila tried to stay hidden in the corner, but she felt a presence beside her. "You enjoy making bold statements, don't you?" Mr. Raymond's deep voice teased gently. She looked up, startled. "I'm sorry if I went too far, sir. Don't apologize," he interrupted, his eyes warm. "What you said tonight was braver than anything I've heard in years. You didn't just change me, you changed this whole room." Her breath caught. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time she saw no wall, no mask, only a man who admired her courage. "Thank you," she whispered. He studied her for a moment, then offered his hand. "Would you like to dance?" Sheila's eyes widened. "Dance with you? Why not?" he asked with a faint smile. Her heart pounded as she placed her hand in his. They moved onto the dance floor, and the whispers around them grew louder. But Sheila didn't hear them. All she could feel was the warmth of his hand and the steady rhythm of his steps. As they danced slowly, he leaned closer and said quietly, "Do you realize what you've done, Sheila?" She looked up nervously. "What do you mean?" "You've turned a fortress into a home," he said softly, "and you don't even know it." Her chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. All she knew was that this moment, the two of them moving across the floor, surrounded by stares and whispers, was something she would never forget. For the first time, she didn't feel scared. She felt seen. The company dinner became the talk of the office for weeks. People could not stop discussing Sheila's bold toast and the unforgettable moment when she and the CEO danced together. Some admired her bravery. Others whispered behind her back, their jealousy sharper than ever. But no one could deny it. Sheila had changed something in the heart of the company. For Sheila, that night marked a turning point. She had stepped out of her own shadow, spoken her truth in front of everyone, and instead of punishment, she had found respect. More than that, she had seen a new side of Mr. Raymond, one that was open, warm, and even vulnerable, but the attention didn't fade. Every move she made was now under watchful eyes. If she spoke in a meeting, people analyzed her words. If Mr. Raymond looked at her for more than a second, rumors sparked instantly. The pressure was heavy, but Sheila refused to let it crush her. She reminded herself of what he had said. "Don't hide your honesty. That's what makes you unique." One evening, after another long day, she stayed late again to finish some reports. The office was quiet, the glow of the city lights streaming through the tall windows. She was lost in her work when she felt his presence. "You always stay longer than everyone else," Mr. Raymond said, stepping closer. She looked up with a small smile. "Maybe I'm just slow." He shook his head. "No, you're dedicated." "There's a difference." Sheila lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "I just want to prove that I deserve to be here. That I'm not what people say I am." His voice softened. "You don't need to prove anything to them. You've already proven yourself to me." Her heart skipped. She wanted to say something, but her throat tightened. He continued, his eyes steady. "Do you know what I see when I look at you? Not just an employee, not just someone honest. I see someone who isn't afraid to shake the ground beneath her feet even if she stumbles. That courage. It's rare, Sheila." She swallowed hard, her chest tightening. "I didn't mean to change things, sir. It all started with a mistake." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes mistakes are just doors to the right path." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, she whispered, "What happens now? People already think things that aren't true." He took a deep breath, his voice calm but certain. "Let them think. What matters is what's true between us." Her eyes widened. The air around them felt charged, as if the whole world had shrunk to just the two of them. She searched his face, trying to find arrogance, coldness, or distance. But there was none. All she saw was sincerity, Slowly, she nodded. The truth is, I respect you. More than I can say. His gaze softened even more. And I respect you, Sheila. Not because of what you've done for me, but because of who you are. Her heart raced. She wanted to say more, but the words stuck. Instead, she gave him a small, trembling smile. That night, she walked home under the stars, her mind spinning. She knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. The whispers in the office wouldn't stop. The judgment from others might even grow stronger. But something inside her had changed. She wasn't just the nervous new employee anymore. She had found her voice and someone who valued it. In the weeks that followed, the office continued to feel different. Mr. Raymond was no longer the cold, untouchable CEO. He was still firm and disciplined, but he smiled more, listened more, and encouraged others to speak their minds. The walls of fear slowly began to crumble, replaced by a culture of openness. People started saying the company felt alive again. And while they never admitted it openly, most of them knew who had sparked that change. For Sheila, life was still full of challenges. Jealous whispers remained, but she carried herself with quiet confidence now. Whenever doubt tried to creep in, she remembered his words. Mistakes are just doors to the right path. And she realized something powerful. That one accident, those careless words in the break room, had transformed not just her career, but her life. She had entered the company as a nervous newcomer, afraid of making mistakes, but she had become the voice that changed her boss, her workplace, and perhaps even her own destiny. Mr. Raymond's reaction had not been anger or dismissal. It had been curiosity, respect, and something deeper. And that, more than anything, proved that honesty, even when uncomfortable, could reshape the future. In the end, Sheila knew one thing for sure. She would never again hide her voice. Because her honesty was her strength, and it was the reason everything had changed.